You're falling, not through air, but through time. The universe stretches beneath you. Ahead, a perfect ring of fire glowing around a silence so complete it swallows its own reflection. Your ship hums, your pulse slows. The clock on your wrist still ticks, but on Earth, centuries begin to pass. The closer you drift, the quieter the universe becomes, as if creation itself is holding its breath. Every fall begins with a question. What happens if I go too far? We call black holes the edge of understanding, but that's not just a scientific truth, it's an emotional one. Because to look into a black hole is to look at the border between knowing and believing. Tonight, on Chronicle of Secret, we're going to cross that border to see not just what's proven, but what might still be waiting beyond the dark. If you ever fell toward a black hole, you wouldn't feel a wall or see a glowing edge. You'd cross a point of no return without even knowing it. And from that moment on, every possible future would point in one direction: inward. Not because the black hole pulls you in, but because space-time itself has given up every other option. That's the cruel beauty of it. A black hole is not a thing. It's the shape of nothing. It has no crust, no skin, no heartbeat. Its geometry twisted so violently by mass that even light, the fastest thing in existence, can't find a way out. Physicists sort them into 3 classes, each more unsettling than the last. Stellar black holes are the graveyards of massive stars, corpses of suns that lived fast and died in fire, collapsing under their own weight. Intermediate black holes are the cosmic middle children, too big to be born from a single star, too small to rule a galaxy. For decades, they were pure rumor, numbers without faces, hiding in the crowded hearts of star clusters. And then there are the supermassive black holes, millions, sometimes billions of solar masses, sitting in the centers of galaxies, shaping everything that orbits them. They don't just exist inside galaxies. In a strange way, galaxies exist because of them. The math behind all this came from Einstein's general relativity, a theory born in 1915. But the thought itself is older than America's first light bulb. In the 18th century, a quiet Englishman, John Michel, wrote that maybe a star could be so heavy that even light couldn't escape. The Frenchman Laplace echoed the idea. They had no relativity, no quantum mechanics, no telescopes to prove it, just raw intuition. And somehow, they were right. A century later, while artillery thundered across World War I, a soldier mathematician named Carl Schwarzschild solved Einstein's equations and discovered the exact conditions for a cosmic point of no return. The irony? He died months later, never knowing he'd uncovered the mathematics of eternity. When people call black holes objects, I always smile, because they are not hidden things wrapped in shadow. They are the shadow. They are the universe folding in on itself, a cosmic secret, dressed not in darkness, but in the absence of light. And the closer we stare, the stranger it gets. Because what looks like an end might just be the beginning of something we don't yet have the language to describe. How do you photograph something that no light can escape from? That was the question that haunted astronomers for a century, a puzzle Einstein's math predicted, but no telescope could ever see. Until we did. For most of history, black holes lived only on paper, lines of ink, whispers of curvature, a beautiful nightmare hidden in equations. Then came the evidence, the strange behavior of stars that seemed to orbit nothing at all. In the 1990s, telescopes caught a few bright stars near the center of the Milky Way, looping wildly around an invisible point. Each orbit was a confession of gravity. Year after year, astronomers measured their speed, so fast that nothing but a 4 million solar mass object could explain it. That invisible anchor had a name, Sagittarius A. But a name isn't a picture. To see a black hole, we had to do something audacious, turn our entire planet into a single lens. In April 2019, 8 observatories scattered across the Earth synchronized their eyes. The data took years to combine, and when the image finally emerged, the room fell silent. On every monitor glowed the same impossible sight, a blurry, uneven ring of light surrounding pure absence, the first photograph of a black hole's shadow. That shadow belonged to M87 Twon, 55 million light-years away. The bright edge wasn't a cosmic coincidence, it was relativistic beaming, the same effect Einstein described more than a century earlier. Matter orbiting the black hole at nearly the speed of light glowed fiercely on the side moving toward us and dimmed on the side moving away. The universe had just confirmed that space-time really does twist the way the math said it should. 3 years later, in 2022, the same global team did it again, this time capturing Sagittarius A Boss itself. Our own black hole, restless and flickering, finally had a face. 2 black holes in 2 different galaxies, both obeying the same impossible geometry. But here's the part that still gives me chills. What we saw wasn't the black hole. It was the shadow of its gravity. The actual hole hides deeper still, forever unseen. The glowing ring is light from doomed matter, bent and delayed, circling the drain of creation. Every photon in that image had to fight space-time and lose beautifully. That picture was more than proof. It was poetry written in relativity. And maybe that's why people wept when they saw it. Because in that blurred ring of orange light, humanity wasn't just looking at a distant galaxy. We were watching a century-old dream step out of theory and into existence. But the question still burns. If that's what we can see from the outside, what happens when you cross the line? You wouldn't die right away. That's the strange mercy of a black hole. If you were falling toward one, you wouldn't feel the moment your fate was sealed. No flash, no warning, just a quiet betrayal of physics. The clocks on your ship would tick normally, your heartbeat steady. But to the rest of the universe, your seconds would stretch like taffy. From their point of view, you'd slow down, fade, and finally freeze on the edge of eternity. It's not an illusion. It's time itself disagreeing about what now means. The boundary you crossed, the event horizon, isn't a wall. It's a rewriting of geometry. On one side, there are futures that lead anywhere. On the other, every future points to one destination: the center. You can fire your engines, scream equations into the void. It won't matter. The universe has edited the meaning of escape. Now comes the pull, the difference between what your head feels and what your feet feel. Tidal forces. Gentle at first, then unstoppable. Your body begins to stretch, atom by atom, into a thin, elegant line. The technical term is spaghettification. The poetic term might be unraveling. For small black holes, this happens before you even reach the horizon. You'd be torn apart before knowing what killed you. But for supermassive black holes, the giants millions or billions of times heavier, the gradient is soft. You could cross the horizon intact, unaware that you're already gone. The bigger the monster, the slower the mercy. Inside, the laws of motion twist. Time and space swap roles. Moving forward becomes falling inward. You're not so much traveling through space as you are being carried by it, like a leaf caught in the current of a cosmic river. That's not a metaphor. It's literally how physicists describe it. Space-time itself flowing toward the singularity faster than light can swim against it. Imagine that. Reality as a waterfall, and you are the drop. Outside, the universe watches your fall in endless slow motion. Inside, you reach the bottom in moments. 2 stories, both true, both irreconcilable. And at the center, our equations stutter. The math turns to infinity. The smooth fabric of space-time rips open, revealing something we can't yet name. We call it the singularity, but that's just another word for we don't know. Maybe it's not a point, but a passage. Maybe it's where one universe ends and another begins. Or maybe it's the place where all stories go when they can no longer be told. No one knows. No one can know. A black hole doesn't just swallow matter, it swallows certainty. And every time we stare at one, we're reminded that the universe still keeps secrets. Even light can't escape. They say nothing escapes a black hole. But maybe that isn't true. Maybe what escapes is meaning. At the edge of a black hole, the known laws of physics begin to tremble. Gravity no longer behaves like gravity. Time and space exchange glances and forget who they were. What we call singularity, that cold, mathematical word, might not be an end at all, but a kind of birth scream in reverse. Imagine falling through that dark heart, expecting oblivion, and finding light instead. From the outside, we see matter collapsing inward forever, but from within, that collapse could look like an explosion, a new Big Bang, expanding outward into its own universe. Our universe, this one, might be just one of countless offspring, each black hole a cosmic womb, each death a birth somewhere else. So perhaps every time a star dies and collapses, a new cosmos opens its eyes, and maybe, somewhere far beyond comprehension, another universe once did the same, giving birth to ours. If that's true, then creation and destruction are not opposites. They are the same gesture, seen from two sides of time. Some physicists whispered that these hidden universes are connected, not by light, but by geometry, the invisible tunnels of space-time, what we call wormholes. For an instant shorter than thought, space folds back on itself, bridging two realms like a secret handshake between worlds. The bridges collapse before anything can cross, but the idea itself survives. And in that idea, humanity keeps walking further, drawn to the forbidden edges of the map. Even time, the one thing we thought we understood, unravels here. Einstein's equations allow loops, closed circles of cause and effect. Inside a black hole, you could follow time long enough to meet your own past coming toward you. In that eternal loop, beginnings and endings lose meaning. The universe, it seems, loves to repeat its favorite stories. But one question still hums beneath it all, soft, relentless, unsolved. If nothing can escape, what happens to information? When a star, a planet, or a human being falls in, does the story vanish? Quantum theory insists it cannot. Nothing that exists can ever be truly erased. So perhaps the record remains, stitched into the horizon itself, every atom's history written as ripples of light, too faint for our eyes. Maybe the black hole doesn't devour truth, it archives it. Maybe every secret the universe ever had is still there, encoded in silence, waiting to be translated. And if that's so, then a black hole isn't a monster at all. It's a mirror, showing us that endings are just beginnings wearing darker clothes. The edge we fear to cross might not be the limit of existence, but the place where existence starts again. We've spent centuries trying to map the stars, but the truth is, we were always mapping ourselves. Every civilization has looked into the dark and seen its own reflection. From the temples of Egypt to the radio dishes of modern science, every generation has stared into the same abyss and whispered the same question. What are we inside all this? If black holes are the universe's memory, then perhaps consciousness is how the universe remembers itself. We are its echo, fragile, curious, terrified, and yet unyielding. That's the human equation, a heart that fears the dark and still builds telescopes to look deeper into it. We made the invisible visible, not to conquer it, but to understand our place within it. The first image of a black hole wasn't just a triumph of science, it was a mirror held up to the cosmos, showing us that wonder is not weakness. It's how light survives inside the human mind. Think of it, creatures made of dust, standing on a rock smaller than a pixel, daring to comprehend the machinery of existence itself. Every theory we build, every image we capture is our way of saying, we were here, we asked, we cared. Maybe that's what black holes teach us. That knowledge, like matter, is never destroyed. It changes form, it bends, it waits. Even when understanding collapses, curiosity escapes, always finding new light to chase. We are the eyes of the universe, the part of creation that learned to look back. And perhaps that's the purpose of all this falling, all this wondering, so the universe can finally see itself through the fragile mirror of a human soul. Maybe that's how light escapes. At night, we light small fires to mimic the stars we can't reach. We've done it since the beginning, a quiet defiance against the dark. Light, by every rule of physics, was never meant to escape a black hole. And yet, in ways we barely understand, it does. Not as beams or particles, but as understanding. The light that escapes is the one we create. It's the glow of curiosity that outlives the stars, the shimmer of questions that never stop burning. We can't pull matter back from the abyss, but we can pull meaning from it. Every formula, every photograph, every sleepless night spent staring into the unknown is a way of saying, the universe may forget us, but we will not forget it. Because that's what light really is. Memory. Pattern. The act of remembering across time. Even when the last sun dies, our questions will keep traveling. Not through space, but through minds yet unborn, through stories yet to be told. We are that light. Frail, flickering, but relentless. The moment we ask why, we cheat gravity. The moment we wonder what if, the cosmos grows a new star. And so, even in the end, the universe will not be dark. Because once, there were beings who built fire from thought, who stared into the impossible and called it beautiful. Once, there was light, and in that light, the universe remembered us. This is Chronicle of Secret. If the unknown still calls to you, if the silence between stars feels like an unfinished sentence, then keep walking with us. Stay curious, stay awake, and keep watching the universe unfold. Because in every secret we uncover, in every question you dare to ask, you don't just witness the light, you become it. And that light is us.